Welcome, fellow Jedi and Sith. You are tuning into Imperial Radio, your all-talk weekly Star Wars podcast. I'm your host, Kobe Larson, along with my co-host, Alex Wormstead. Today's episode of the Imperial Radio Podcast, we will be discussing mainly our reactions, our thoughts about the latest addition to the Star Wars franchise that we just saw about a week ago today, which was the Rise of Skywalker. Hopefully, it's been about a week since it came out. It's been a week and a day since we've seen it, and we just want to go over some reactions and thoughts. So obviously there will be some spoilers, major spoilers. So we would ask, if you haven't seen the movie, maybe if unless you don't care about spoilers, you might want to not tune into this episode until you've seen it. Hopefully by now you've seen it. It's been a week. Hopefully you're Star Wars fans. That's why you're here. So let's get started. We'll just start off with. I'll start with my reaction to the movie. I guess if I had to sum it up in one word, I would say it's kind of boring, but I would say it's great. It's a great movie. I mean, you had everything in this movie. You had action and adventure and a little bit of love, and some people say that they laughed, they cried, all the in between. They hit all the emotions, and I think it really did a great job in doing that. Just as a movie, just as a movie, not just as Star Wars. It was visually astounding. I thought the dialogue was mostly pretty good compared to some other more drab kind of dialogue in some of the other movies. It really served its purpose as the last movie of this franchise. Obviously, me and Al, we're mega Star Wars fans, and when you're a mega Star Wars fan or a fan of any franchise, the movie can be good, but you can still have some problems with it. Just because we have a lot of we have a lot of fan service that we want to happen, and you don't always get all that. But the fan service in the movie was great. I mean, they really gave us what we wanted to see most of the time. I mean, we didn't know if Palpatine was going to serve a huge purpose in the movie, and we get there, and he's literally mentioned in the opening crawl. I mean, it was Palpatine the whole way through. He wasn't just a cameo. He wasn't just a tie-in to something. He was straight up the bad guy of this movie, like we've seen in the previous original trilogy, and pretty much the prequels, I guess, too, if you're really paying attention. But I thought the Rey and Kylo dynamic was really good, the best we've seen in any of the movies. Rey's a lot more powerful in this movie, and I mean Kylo was already pretty powerful, but he's definitely grown a lot too. It's definitely the most conflicted we see Kylo. Probably the most, in my opinion, the most intriguing character from the entire new trilogy is Kylo Ren. I mean, he's the most conflicted, the most well drawn out character, and you could obviously kind of see it in Last Jedi that he really was thinking about the turn, going back to the light. But obviously, big spoiler alert, he does end up turning back to the light and helping Rey in her quest to destroy Palpatine once and for all, because that guy will not go away. I mean, he is destined to rule the galaxy or whatever he wants to do, and he is just a thorn in the side of everybody in the Star Wars universe, and he continues to be that thorn in the side for this entire movie, for everyone, not just Rey and Kylo. I mean, he is threatening to destroy worlds on a mass level, and he has the ship power to do it. So I thought this movie was great. I really did. I mean, every character got a decent arc. I mean, the movie didn't focus so much on Finn and Poe as much as Rey and Kylo, but it was really nice to see those two along with Rey on her journey. It was really nice to see the whole group together, because you don't get that a lot, and that was one of the biggest regrets of a lot of or the biggest letdown of like the original trilogy, when they said that, we want to see more of Luke and Leia and Han and Chewie and all the group together, and then they kind of got that in the last movie. And this movie really kind of is similar to the Return of the Jedi. Did I say the Last Jedi, Al?
No, you said Return of the Jedi.
Okay, thank God. I was going to say the fans would be torching me at this moment. No, there's a lot of similarities in the in Return of the Jedi and this Rise of Skywalker movie, which is kind of a J.J. Abrams staple. But all in all, it was a great movie. I mean, just great. That's the best way I can describe it. What did you think of it, Al?
Oh, I really enjoyed the movie. It was, yeah, like you said, I would say it's pretty great. There's a lot of things that I thought were really great for the franchise. Like you said, you get to see all of them together, and that is something that you don't get to see a whole lot of in the original trilogy. But I guess the main thing that I really liked was just kind of how they tied things together, and it really showed how they could, I don't know, kind of rebound after The Last Jedi, you could say. But knowing that how powerful Rey was, it didn't make sense in the previous two movies. But then in this movie, you find out that she is a Palpatine. That's what's crazy, I mean, that really, it was just kind of like mind-blowing when I first found out. And so when we found out she was a Palpatine, then it made sense of how much power she actually had. Yeah, I guess you kind of hit all the main points. It was very well movie. I liked it. There's some things I didn't like, I guess, but no, for the most part, I liked it. I enjoyed it. It was, the main thing I didn't like about it, I guess, was how they said it was going to end the movie or end the series and kind of wrap things up, and I didn't think it did that at all very well. I think they could make another 3 movies, but I don't know. What do you think the future, maybe with our fan service, that we could get another 3 movies, Cobe?
I definitely think it's a slight possibility, and I say slight as in, I mean, if we're talking percentages, I'm going to say like 20-30% chance we get another trilogy, because it's a really touchy subject, and a lot of people are kind of calling for that, but I don't know if it can happen. We'll talk about that in a later segment. For now, let's move on to we thought we'd give you a little segment of obviously there was a lot of people that liked the movie, a lot of people that disliked the movie, and a lot of people that maybe were a little neutral and they would have changed it a little bit. So we're going to give you our thoughts on the movie. We're going to give you some things we liked, some things we disliked, and some things that maybe we didn't like or dislike, but we would definitely change just to see a different outcome. So we'll start with you, Al. You give us your likes, dislikes, and what you would change.
Well, definitely my likes would be seeing everyone together. You get to see more backstory with, you even get to see more backstory with Luke. I didn't mention that before. That's cool. You get to see stuff with Luke and stuff with Leia of how Leia actually was a Jedi and how Luke was training her. You get to see Han Solo again. I really liked that. The Palpatine stuff was really cool, don't get me wrong, but did they execute it perfectly? I don't think so. They could have done things a little different with Palpatine, I thought. But for the most part, I really liked the movie and everything around it. There's very few things I disliked about the movie. Probably the biggest thing that I liked about it was Rose.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
If you didn't know, she got Jar Jar'd pretty hard in this movie.
Oh, yeah, big Jar Jar.
So that's great. Yeah, I guess the biggest dislike I had was, the biggest dislike that I had was that they didn't execute things with Palpatine as perfectly as I thought they were going to. It was just kind of, they threw it at us, and I liked it, don't get me wrong, but there's stuff they could have done differently with that. Also, I wish they would have shown something with Rey actually repairing Luke's lightsaber instead of just kind of like, yep, she repaired it, but I don't know. Do you agree with any of those things, or what do you think about it, Cobe?
Well, I definitely think I shared pretty much the same opinion on most of those points. I would have liked to see Rey repairing the lightsaber or doing something with the lightsaber. But I mean, it wasn't the biggest deal to me, I guess. I mean, they had a lot to fit in this movie, but the thing I liked most about the movie, like the exact thing I liked most, not just like in general, my favorite scene, I guess you could say, was when Rey was fighting Palpatine, and, well, she wasn't really fighting him, but she was supposed to be fighting Palpatine, and she was laying on the ground, and all of a sudden you could hear the voices of a few Jedi that, we haven't seen in quite a while, and at this point are all long gone. You hear the voices of Obi-Wan, Yoda, Luke, Anakin especially. He's one of the more prominent voices, and they even went as far as to add like Ahsoka Tano from the Clone Wars, Kanan Jarrus from Rebels, and then a few other Jedi from the prequel trilogy that never even got speaking parts like in the actual movies, but they are talking to Rey, communicating with her through the Force, which brings up a lot of questions. I mean, there was only so many Jedi that knew how to transcend the physical plane, but I just thought that part was so cool in theaters. It was kind of just like a really nice callback to the prequels and to previous Star Wars projects that meant a lot to me. And I'm a guy that I like the background Jedi. I like the Jedi that don't have a story in the movies. You're just a lot of those background guys that not many people know about. That's kind of me and Al's niche. We really like that background stuff. Not your main characters. Something I disliked. There was a few things that I disliked. One was probably not the ending scene itself, but just kind of how the movie ended. Like, it was a very happy ending. I mean, Rey defeated Palpatine. She kind of rose up and, with the help of the other Jedi, helped to defeat Palpatine. And they blow up all the ships, and it's a big happy ending. They go and they celebrate, really similar to Return of the Jedi. And we had that really, that really nice heartstring pulling scene of Rey, and she is bearing Luke and Leia's lightsaber. I thought that was pretty touching. It was a nice scene, but then the movie just ends. I mean, she says the thing about her being a Rey Skywalker. Spoiler alert, sorry, but I don't know. It just seemed like there needed to be more. I mean, Al said that, and he said that it didn't necessarily bring the best ending to the franchise. I mean, if we look at it subjectively, as far as we're being told, this is the last movie of the Skywalker saga. The characters that started it all in the original trilogy, the prequel characters, pretty much anything in between there and to now, the new trilogy, it's done. I mean, there's going to be like shows and maybe some anthology movies, like there's the Kenobi show coming out next year. There is supposedly they're going to do an assortment of shows, and there's going to be a new trilogy, but the Skywalker saga is done. I mean, it's, as far as we know, unless Disney goes for a huge money grab, it's done. I mean, there's no more movies. So that was it. It's the end of the line. I mean, but I just want you to ask yourself, if you've seen the movie, if you're going to see the movie, like, was this the greatest ending to the saga? I mean, it was a good ending. I don't have any problems with the ending, but
it seems like an episode 2 ending. It doesn't seem like an episode 3 of a trilogy ending.
Right. And everyone's having these theories that they might reboot it and have more episodes, because they're like, oh, well, we didn't see what happened with Rey, if she's going to train new Jedi or if she's going to end the Jedi. We don't see, there's just so much left unsaid. But I'm like, I really think it was just the error of the movie. I think we're not going to get anything else. So that's pretty much what I disliked the most. There were some other little nitpicky things I didn't really care for, but I mean, that's not really worth bringing up, I guess. One thing I would change about the movie would probably be how they handled Palpatine. I like Palpatine, and I don't necessarily have a major problem. Like, this is kind of nitpicky, but I don't think there's not a major problem with Palpatine, besides the fact that we don't really get any backstory to how he came back into power. I mean, the original trilogy is probably the most iconic trilogy in Star Wars, and the original trilogy said in the movies, in the telling of the movies, that Palpatine is dead. I mean, Vader killed him and brought balance to the Force, and that's that. Then this new movie, it brings back Palpatine, which is fine. I mean, they can kind of retcon stuff from the old movies, but you have to explain it. If you're going to do something huge like that, you have to explain it. And they really didn't. There was like one throwaway line from a random Resistance member, and he was like, they're like, "Oh, how could he be back? He's dead." And he's like, "Oh, Sith alchemy and magic and all that." And that's all that's said. I mean, there's nothing. You don't know if he just crawled out of a hole and was like, I got to go make some ships. You don't know if there was some Sith magic and alchemy. I mean, you just don't know. There's nothing there to tell you. And that's probably the one thing I would change about the movie. Give a nice little, like, couple minute him explaining how he survived, or someone explaining how he survived, something like that, just to kind of
Just throw us a bone, basically.
right, yeah, just throw us a bone. I mean, tell us. It doesn't have to be at in depth, but something, there was nothing there, and that was kind of, it didn't necessarily like affect me in the movie. That was more of an afterthought. But so yeah, that's some of the things that we liked, we disliked, and obviously would have changed. The movie was great overall. We're not trying to be nitpicky, but we do kind of have to be nitpicky, otherwise we don't have content for the show. On a more lighter note, we're going to talk about, since this was the last movie in the Skywalker saga and the last movie for quite a while, I think they said 3 years before anything else is, I mean, like movie-wise, there's going to be shows, but as for blockbuster movies, I mean, it's going to be at least 3 years, was what we were being told. So, we'll start with Al. What do you want to see in the future of the franchise? We know they're making an Old Republic movie that's very well been confirmed. We don't necessarily know who is directing this movie, now that there's a little bit of dispute with the Game of Thrones directors. But what do you want to see in the future of the franchise beyond this Old Republic trilogy? And if you do want to include that, kind of give us a hint at what you want to see in this new trilogy that has been confirmed.
Okay, well, for starters, with the future, I would really like to see just kind of like what they're doing with the Mandalorian, just kind of completely throw away the Jedi and the Force for the most part, and kind of just show the everyday people and have like a Western feel to it, and more like a everyday just action TV show, because at the end of the day, in the Star Wars universe, there's not a whole lot of Force users out there anymore. And even if we go back to the prequel times, sure, there's quite a bit, but there's still, per capita for the Star Wars universe, there isn't that many Force users, so I'd like to see more of that. I'd like to see a little more, even before the prequels happen for the future, like the Old Republic that the new trilogy's coming out on. I guess if we're going to go for that too, if we're going to have Force users, I'd like to see some epic battles like Knights of the Old Republic, some like a whole bunch of Sith before the Rule of Two and a whole bunch of Jedi just clashing, I want to see that type of stuff. And this new trilogy, I think they might be able to get some of that stuff, but it'll be pretty hard to, do that type of stuff with visual effects and everything and choreography of lightsaber fighting, but I think that'd be really cool to see in the future. I don't know, the future is so wide open in Star Wars, it's crazy. I mean, there's so much stuff that you can't even think of off the top of your head for the future of the franchise, because Star Wars is so wide open, and I'm just excited for the future, and I can't wait, because whatever they bring should be pretty good. There's very few things in Star Wars that I dislike with the new stuff anyway, so I don't know, that is just too hard to kind of say what I want for the future without knowing what the future is going to have out there for us. I know that the Old Republic trilogy is going to be done very well, and however they do it, it's going to be great, I think. So, I don't know. That's just, the future is so vast, and it's kind of a vague question for anyone to kind of want something, I guess. So, what do you think for the future? Do you want more Jedi and stuff like that, Kobe, or?
Well, yeah, I'm a Jedi guy. I mean, I like my lightsabers and my Force users. I do like to see stuff like The Mandalorian, where it's just guns ablazing, regular people trying to make some money out here in the crazy Star Wars universe. But the main thing I want to see in the future is just, like, this sounds so cliche, but just good, solid Star Wars content. Like, a lot of people are very touchy about, some say, oh, Star Wars hasn't been the same since Disney's taken over, and they don't treat it the same way that like George Lucas on his own would treat it. And while I both agree and disagree with that at the same time, there's parts of things that I think it's good that Disney had the buyout, and there's parts of things where I'm like, well, that would have been a lot better if George Lucas could have handled that on his own and had his own writing team handle that. But I just want to see good movies. I mean, I'm not the biggest Star Wars stickler in the world. There's a lot of people that are a lot more critical than me, but I want content that, if it's not going to be Skywalker content, that's fine. Not everything in Star Wars has to be Luke and Vader and Kylo Ren and Rey. It doesn't have to be related to all that. But it still should serve a purpose. It shouldn't just be like throwaway movies. They should serve somewhat of a purpose in the galaxy. You know what I mean? Like, when I first heard that they were gonna make an Old Republic trilogy, I was thinking like, oh, that'd be awesome. They could literally just turn the Knights of the Old Republic game, the BioWare game. They could just take that and turn it into a cinematic movie, and I would watch it, and it'd probably be some of my favorite movies out of the entire franchise. But obviously, being that Disney likes to create their own things and come up with their own stories, that's not what it's going to be. And it's been pretty much said that it's going to take place 100 or a few hundred years like before the prequels. So it'll be the Old Republic, but it won't be like, I mean, for some of you hardcore Star Wars fans out there, it isn't going to be like Revan and the Shans and all those awesome people that were in the game. It's not going to be anything like that. I mean, you're not going to get any Darth Malguses or anything close to that. It's going to be something different. I mean, 100 years before the prequels, Yoda's still alive. I'm pretty sure Palpatine's pretty close to alive. He's not alive, but he's getting there. I mean, a lot of these characters that in the prequels could very well be alive in this trilogy. Like if it takes place around Jedi, I'm pretty sure Master Yoda would still be the Grand Master of the Order 100 years before the prequels. So I don't know how they're going to handle that, just from a Jedi and like Force user perspective. Unless they take it to a more they don't focus it so much on the Jedi, which would be fine. But it doesn't really matter what they do to me, I guess. It's just I want to see good, meaningful content, and I don't think that's too much to ask for. I don't think it's too hard. I mean, some people don't like the sequel trilogy, but I think it's good, meaningful content, whether you like it or dislike it. But yeah, I mean, I'm not overly picky about what I want to see. I just want to see something meaningful. Pretty much is all I'm saying. We're going to move away from the Rise of Skywalker. If you have questions or concerns, you can email us at imperialradio66@gmail.com. Like us on Twitter. Our Twitter handle is at Imperial Radio Podcast. And yeah, so let's get into probably the hottest topic of the day, considering we just watched the episode like 20 minutes ago. The season finale of The Mandalorian. Ooh, man, that was a good episode. I tell you what. What'd you think of the episode, Al?
All right. Well, this is something that I've been ready to talk about all day. The Mandalorian was a great first season, I thought, overall. Just talking about the whole season right now. But the season finale was great. The season finale really it gave you a season finale feel. It gave you like, we're ending kind of this arc a little bit, but we're also continuing it, and we're giving you a cliffhanger. And the biggest, I guess, we'll have some spoilers in this for The Mandalorian. Sorry if you haven't seen it, but at the end of it, you get to see the Darksaber. And for those of you that don't know what the Darksaber is, it's a lightsaber that is black, and it was at the Jedi Temple for many years, and it was meant for the Chosen One. Am I right on that? Fact check. I believe it was for the Chosen One. And back with the Great Jedi and Mandalorian Wars, a lone Mandalorian named, what was his name again?
Well, it was Mandalore the Indomitable that originally held the Darksaber, and then it got passed down to the Mandalore until there was a Mandalorian Jedi, which was the first of its kind ever. That's all non-canon, though. That's considered non-canon now, but it's still a cool story.
Yeah. And, well, then he steals it, gets it back, and then, anyway, runs down, and the next time you get to see it or hear about it, Clone Wars, Pre Vizsla has it, and it's really cool in the Clone Wars. It goes through so many important hands in the Star Wars universe. It goes through Pre Vizsla's hands, then you get to see Darth Maul with it in the Clone Wars, which is really cool. And then in Rebels, you get to see it again, and then now you get to see it. So just some background on the Darksaber. It's a really cool lightsaber, and it's we've only seen it in animated shows. It's really cool to see it in a real life show.
Yeah, we've never seen it in real life form, and I think it's amazing that they actually added it into a live action, because a lot of things get brought in the cartoons and the comics and things like that. Although they are canon, they don't serve the same purposes when you bring them in a movie. I mean, that's huge, because that's when everyone gets to see it, or a movie or a TV show, something like that. But any other thoughts, Al?
Yeah, there's so much to talk about with this episode. I loved this episode. You get to see the Mandalorian. You get to see his face for the first time, which is really cool. And the only time you really get to see it, or the only reason you get to see it, is because the nurse droid wants to help him, and he can't show his face to a living creature. But a droid, as we know, is not a living being or anything like that. It is just property, to sound really bad about it. It's property. But yeah, you get to see his face. I mean, I enjoyed seeing his face. It served a really cool purpose, because that is like the Mandalorian's big thing, is you cannot show your face to anyone, because that's part of the code, This is the way.
This is the way.
So that was really cool. I'm really excited for Season 2 with this Darksaber stuff, because, the Darksaber, almost as you watch the shows, it should belong to a Mandalorian. So I really hope that Mando gets it back. I think it'd be really cool. And also you get to see, they hint at maybe seeing possible stuff in the near future with Baby Yoda and his family coming back. You might see that in a couple, I don't know if we're, maybe next season, hopefully you get to see Baby Yoda get returned to his family. That's something that might be pretty cool with that. They hint at that in the season finale. And also Mando gets his crest, it's the Mudhorn. So that was really cool. It's a good season finale, and I'm ready for Season 2. What do you think, Gob?
Well, let me start by saying that was the second best Mandalorian episode of the entire 8 episodes in the first season. The first, obviously, being the first episode, because that was probably one of the greatest pieces of Star Wars content I've seen in so long, was that first episode of Mandalorian. That was amazing. But this episode was great. I mean, all the episodes I liked, but this episode was great. You get to see so much. You meet the main bad guy, Moff Gideon. All the Boba Fett stans and fanboys out there are crying because they realized that episode with the boots and the spur cliffhanger. Everyone was like, "Oh, it's Boba Fett," and I was like, I'm pretty sure it's just Grand Moff Gideon, and that's who it ends up being. But nevertheless, that's still an awesome character. He's pretty cool. We don't really get to see him all that much, but you can just tell he's this really good, really cool character. He's pretty scary. And you get to see him with his legion of stormtroopers, and they are holding up Mando and Cara Dune and the IG droid and Apollo Creed. I can't think of his name. It's a really good episode, and you see that sadly, Queel, the Ugnaught friend of Mando, does pass. Moment of silence for Queel. All right, moment of silence over. Yeah, it was pretty sad, but I mean, I didn't really expect him to go that far in the series. I figured he would either just kind of be done helping them or probably pass. But regardless, it's pretty cool to see. Mando shows his face, which is awesome. You get to see. I thought Mando was gonna die. I'm like, oh my god, they're gonna kill off the main character. Like, what are they doing? That's too much shock value. But he ends up making it. Sorry for the spoilers if you haven't seen it, but ends up making it. And then the IG droid that helped him and gave him the Bacta spray ends up sacrificing his droid life. I hesitate to call it a life, but it's his droid life. He sacrifices himself so that the rest of the group can escape, and we see the Mandalorian Forge woman from the previous episodes, and she tells Mando, you got to take this kid and take him back to your family. She gives him the jetpack. Yes, he finally gets a jetpack, and also gives him his crest for his suit. So that's awesome. And he gets the Mudhorn crest. That's awesome. And the last we see is them kind of splitting up. Apollo Creed and Cara Dune are going to stay on the planet that they're on. And Mando is going to take Baby Yoda, and I presume he's going to try to find his family, but I guess we don't really know until next season. And then obviously the big ending is you see Moff Gideon getting out of his crashed TIE fighter and with the Darksaber cutting a hole in it, which was awesome. I mean, that was crazy shock value. But yeah, I mean, overall, the season as a whole was great. I mean, I really couldn't have asked for much more. There was a few episodes that were kind of slow, but I mean, there wasn't any bad episodes at all. No bad episodes, I would say, and that's rare, and especially in a first season, that's pretty rare. So they did a really good job with Mandalorian. I'm really excited to see what they can do for the rest of the show. That's gonna about wrap things up for us. We are glad that you tuned in to our newest episode of the Imperial Radio Podcast. We hope that you'll tune in. Fridays, we'll be releasing episodes every Friday around 5 p.m. So check us out. And correction from earlier, our Twitter I said at when I actually meant the name of our Twitter. Our is Imperial Radio P1. That's at Imperial Radio P1. And you can email us at imperialradio66@gmail.com. Thank you for listening, and may the force be with you, my friends.